17 years. 17 years I spent in prison on this charge here.
He is a wonderful human being and was so appreciative that Loyola Law School had decided to take his case because he has maintained his innocence since the day he was arrested.
He was so enthusiastic, and he was just, he was just such a great guy from the minute I met him that it was, first of all, it made it incredibly easy to work on the case because he's just such a lovely guy. And you feel so horrible about the idea that he could be in prison for life for something he didn't do. And he's in this horrible place, in this horrible situation, and yet he still is able to be such a terrific person. It made it very heartbreaking, but also very easy to just try to pour all your time into his case. And Obie always had a million suggestions. He was always going through all his papers and his transcripts and saying, what about this and what about that? Did you think about this? And he had thought about a million things I had never thought about his own case.
Man, that guy really a lawyer? No. It was like, tell you the truth, right? Tell you the truth, it was just, I was excited about when I met them because it was like, for me, it was like, this was help, you know what I mean? And so it's almost like being a drowning victim in the middle of the water and the rescue diver dives in. So when you see him, it's like, man, relief, help, some saving is coming. And so
I had to meet Obie, and I really didn't want to do this because that's way too much responsibility. You meet somebody and you realize whether he spends the rest of his life behind that bars is up to us. So I met him in the holding cell in the courthouse at the very beginning of our hearing. And I guess it was friendship and professional relationship and ultimately a real fond relationship from then on.
Man, my first meeting of Miss Levingston was at, we were sitting, I had been begging to see Miss Levingston too. Can I meet Miss Levingston? Can I meet Miss Levingston? And the first time I sat in front of her, we was down in Demand at the courthouse. She came back there in the holding tank, closed the door. How you doing, Obie? Sit down. Do you know John Jones? Straight to it. No, I do not. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Do you know John Jones? And I'm like, listen, no, I do not know John Jones. So she said, okay. And she went out there and fought and beat him up.
Okay, my role was to find new evidence that would get him relief from doing life in prison because he was doing what we call LWOP, which is life without the possibility of parole. So he would have died in prison. So my job was to right that wrong that had been done to him. That meant finding new evidence, finding people that were not involved in his case at the trial level, interviewing them, talking to the district attorney, their office, going through their files, things like that. Anything that would be new, because that's the only way that we could turn this wrong around. I think the main witness on the case for us was also the main witness on the case at the trial level. It was a pimp that lived in South Central, Mr. Jones, and he was the one that the district attorney's office used to prove the case and put Mr. Anthony away. But what we found as we investigated the case, that everything that he had said was a lie, just about everything. And that they had taken information and forced it to fit in order to convict Mr. Anthony and his co-defendant, Mr. Cole. So none of the facts were there. The single most important piece of evidence that we realized was that we felt that Mr. Jones was working with LAPD and had been for years. He had been running his house of prostitution for maybe 15 years at that point. And no one had shut him down. And after I had talked to a couple of prostitutes, I found out that they were friendly with the police officers, the prostitutes were. So it was kind of, let's turn a deaf ear and a blind eye and just let him do his thing. After I figured that out, I thought, okay, Mr. Jones is getting special favors from LAPD. So I went back to the district attorney's office probably 3 times asking, give me everything that you have on the Obie Anthony case. The last time I went, one of the paralegals said, okay, let's go into our storage room and see if there's anything in there that you don't have. And it was on that last trip that we got that piece of paper where the judge had made a note saying that a deal had been made with Mr. Jones. And that was our critical piece of paper.
Found out, so we got the transcript of this interview in an email, and what we found out was that John Jones had been manipulated into going back to everything he had originally said and more. He was telling a new lie now, that was that he knew Obie from before this. So when he identified Obie, it was identifying a person he actually knew. And so that's, of course, a much stronger ID than he had ever given before. And so my initial reaction was, well, I literally thought I was going to throw up first. And then I was emotionally devastated. Like, I was exhausted and completely upset by the fact that if he went back to court with this, it was going to be hard to see a judge just finding against an incredibly sure identifying witness like this. And so after all this time we had put into this case, if Jones was going to go back and even strengthen his ID by saying, I knew Obie before and I just can't help him, and I only said what I said in Reggie's hearing because I wanted to help him, but I can't help this one, it was really devastating. You know, the high point had to be simply winning the case and hearing the ruling from the bench. The funny thing about the ruling, first of all, you know, I was so afraid that we were going to lose, that going into the court that day, I went with another lawyer and we went into lockup to talk to Obie. And basically, Obie talked us off the ledge because I was so nervous I didn't know what to do, and I was anticipating that if we lost, I couldn't even imagine, honestly, because I felt like Obie was one of my buddies now. And so I literally couldn't imagine what we were going to do if we lost.
There are 4 ways you can win these hearings, and for Obie, we tried all of them. The number one argument that the judge bought was a Brady violation. They hadn't provided the discovery. They didn't tell us everything about John Jones' background. The defense lawyers didn't know all the things about John Jones, things that you probably know now. That John Jones shot the mother of his child while she was holding the baby. He shot her twice in the head and walked away with basically a slap on the hand, probation. That kind of means he got a sweet deal, right? They didn't know the other sweet deals that John Jones got in his other cases. They didn't know that John Jones' house of prostitution had clients, interesting clients like LAPD officers. None of that had been turned over. So that made a huge difference. We also brought a claim for ineffective assistance of counsel. We said that his lawyer had not done the right investigation. His lawyer didn't believe Obie. And a lawyer should be listening to his client and investigating. The problem with that claim is his lawyer ended up winning Defense Lawyer of the Year. So you try bringing an ineffective assistance of counsel claim against him. The next door that we tried to win through was misconduct, police and prosecutorial misconduct. And that's where we had some good things going, because we could show the pocketing of shells. We could show, after talking to John Jones all the time, that Marcella Wynn, the detective, had been pressuring witnesses. So we tried to use that in our petition. And believe it or not, the very last ground was actual innocence, because that one almost never wins. And so we didn't rely on it at all. Most judges are far more willing to say, I'll give you a new trial, because I don't think the first trial was fair, than to say, let your client go, because he's innocent. And even in our case, remember, Judge Filer didn't say, Obie Anthony, everything's dismissed. He didn't say that until we convinced the district attorney's office not to retry the case.
The most difficult part was, I want to say, maybe the first 5 years, because it was in the first 5 years that I had to come to the conclusion that any help that I was going to be getting is going to come either via from it was going to be a stranger. That's the way I termed it. It's going to be a stranger that's going to either hear about my case and decide, look, this guy here got a raw deal and want to help, or it was going to be something that I had did, and I knew that was going to take a long time. Oh, when I knew that I had help, I knew that it would be overturned. I just knew that I couldn't do it on my own, because I didn't have no footwork out on the grounds to be able to do all of the investigative work, know all of the fancy, nice words to say to the judge, have it on paper. And I didn't know none of that. And so, and I knew that once someone basically got their hands on the case, took a look at the case and read the information, that they would see exactly what I had been saying, that I was innocent. And so, and that's exactly what happened when they got their hands on it. So.
For all of these reasons, this court finds that the petitioner was denied due process of law and was denied a fair trial. Therefore, the petition is granted and the petitioner's conviction is vacated and set aside.
I don't know, man. It's a big ball of emotion. Still today, it's that same type of feeling where you get this. It's like a ball in your pit of your stomach. Like, man, you get it's almost like, so you put your effort in for the whole year on a project, right? And you tell yourself, I should get an A on this, right? But you don't know how the teacher is going to grade you, because sometimes he can be real tough on grading papers. And so, but when you finally get that, when you get the paper and that A is on it, it's like, yes, I knew I did a good job. And that's what it was for me. It was like, yes, I knew they did a good job, right? And so there was that whole feeling in you, that relieving feeling. It was like a sense of relief that came over me.
As he read that decision, it was just overwhelming. Everyone in the courtroom let out this, a huge sigh and a lot of crying and jubilation. And of course, Obie was just overjoyed and so thankful to actually see the end to this nightmare that he had lived for 17 years.
Well, that's been the best part, actually. Yeah. A free Obie is an even better Obie. That's what I would say. Frankly, from the minute you walked out of jail, and there were lots of hugs. It was a hug fest. And then just staying in touch and seeing you get your life back together, your job. And then I want to say, Obie was kind enough to come to my daughter's bat mitzvah.